Welcome, everyone, to Beauty and the Surgeon podcast. I'm Amy. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I'm joined today, as always, by Dr. Jason Martin. He's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Dr. Martin, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm healthy. I'm feeling like there's hope for the future, that we are coming out of this COVID mess, and we have an amazing topic today. I'm like extremely excited. Can you tell in my voice?
I can.
Okay,
I can
good.
tell in your voice. And just one little note about this podcast. If you're a longtime listener, you probably noticed that the last two episodes before this had a questionable sound quality.
Okay, this is to say they were terrible.
Hey,
Terrible.
I was the producer on those. I'd rather not say they were terrible.
You will never produce anything of mine, ever.
So thank you all for sticking with us. If you made it through those last two episodes that were a little rough from an audio standpoint, we really appreciate you hanging in. And clearly we're back to being socially distanced with Nils, but he is here. So
Nils is here, and he looks like a barbarian. He came in, no haircut. I mean, things are growing
Big
everywhere.
beard.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep. I don't know how he gets all that beard in the mask.
It's not good. I feel sorry for Sarah, your wife.
Oh, I think Sarah gets down with
If
the
you
Nordic.
see Nils
Yeah.
and he's coming at your child, he's not going to try to take the child. He just hasn't gone to the barber yet.
Yeah, werewolf over there should not be talking.
All right, Amy. So extremely excited about this topic. I'm going to totally nerd out, which is going to annoy you. I'm going to say a lot of science stuff, and you're going to tell me that that's, you don't, yeah, do you know that for sure? But this topic today, we're talking about sleep.
We are.
Yeah, and sleep is something that really intrigues me. It's something that I personally struggle with in my life. I've said this in multiple episodes before. It's something that you've encouraged me to improve, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about sleep. So the first slide, if you're interested in watching this, we actually have some nice high quality slides again and some good quality video. You can find us on YouTube at Jason Martin.
You can also see on YouTube that I have my mask on my Beauty and the Surgeon mug.
Right. A very socially distanced mug. So definitely check it out if you'd like to see the slides that go with today's episode. There aren't many, but they are fun to look at. So the first one, why is sleep important? And if you go back a few episodes, when I went to the Nutritional Therapy Association conference, there was a entire presentation that was all about sleep. So we talked a lot about the benefits of sleep, but some of the real main benefits of getting good quality sleep are a better mood, reduced stress, sharper brain, and that includes mental health in with that. I didn't put mental health as its own, but like kind of just brain health is maybe a better way to put that. Lower blood pressure / heart health, hormone regulation, increased immunity, decreased risk of diabetes. You actually have better blood sugar regulation when you're sleeping well. Weight balancing is easier, athletic performance improves, and even pain management. There are really interesting studies on sleep and pain. People who have chronic pain, obviously it's hard to sleep when you're in pain. Like it kind of becomes this cyclical thing, like you're not getting good quality sleep, your pain perception of pain is higher, or you're not sleeping because you're in pain, like it goes back and forth. So a lot of good benefits from sleep.
Yeah. So pretty much everything you listed there is all of life. You know, it affects almost every part of our physiology and our daily activities. I mean, if you're talking about mood, stress, exercise, diet, weight, I mean, immunity, especially, it's hugely important right now. Sleep affects all that.
It does, and a lot of it comes down to inflammation. You know, most of these, as we understand more about the way the human body works, we understand more about how this kind of insidious inflammation can be in our body. And a lot of these things like weight and athletic performance, mood, hormone regulation, like those are things that kind of require a nice balanced inflammation process to be happening in the body.
And we, like in medicine or, you know, other things, we call it homeostasis, to get to a homeostatic level where everything is balanced out. And when you have sleep deprivation, you don't have good sleep, it throws off these processes, and then you get imbalances.
Yeah.
I mean, especially we've talked, one of our first podcasts was with Matt Metz. I bring him up every single time.
Dr. Metz.
He's an OG guy. So he talked about ghrelin, right? So sleep deprivation, I think it's like less than 7 hours. And some people are saying, well, 7 hours seems pretty good to me. Increases ghrelin release.
And ghrelin is like a hunger hormone.
A hunger hormone, which is the opposite of leptin, which is the thing that's like satiety or feeling full. And that in itself will increase your hunger. If you've ever noticed on nights after sleep deprivation, you're hungry. And you kind of want things like carbs and fats. I mean, that is directly related to the release, they believe, in the release of ghrelin. So it's The
ghrelin connection is more about stress. So the reason your body is going to crave fast fuel when your ghrelin is high is because your body perceives that as a very stressful situation. So if you've had a night of low sleep, your ghrelin is elevated. You're going to be craving nutrient dense, fast foods, so carbohydrates and fat. You're going to want those things because your body doesn't understand the difference between stress and I'm being chased by a tiger.
So I read this too, and tell me what you think about this. So basically, from an evolutionary standpoint, exactly what you're talking about. Why is it when you are sleep deprived that your body perceives that it has to eat more and it gets in that stress state? Well, when you were sleep deprived, it was actually the opposite. When a long time ago, when we were starving, it would restrict our sleep because that would allow us more time to go out and forage and go further to get the calories we need to stay alive.
Right.
It's the inverse.
Well, but starvation studies are interesting because your body downregulates your energy output as your energy input decreases.
Right.
So people who are in early stage starvation studies will be extremely lethargic and very tired and lethargic, like they can barely function. But you kind of reach this tipping point in starvation where you become incredibly energized as your body is like a last ditch effort to shoot your cortisol as high as it can, get out there and, find food.
That's all those body competitors,
right?
The day before their show.
Yeah, so our bodies are interesting in that sense. They try to downregulate when they can. So short periods of stress, right? Where one night of really bad sleep or a few nights of bad sleep, where you kind of have that ghrelin is rising, your cortisol's rising, your leptin's lowering. Your body's trying to help you get better. It's trying to help you get the energy you need so that you can eat and be rested and sleep.
Right.
So it's trying to help you. The problem is in our modern society, we live in a chronic state of sleeplessness.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Or stress.
Ugh.
So all these things are going to be struggling a little bit. And yeah, the sleep is really why we have devalued sleep in our society is kind of a conundrum to me.
Yeah, I wrote this down a long time ago. So sleep and exercise and nutrition, we all agree is really important to our lives. Many of the episodes we've talked about have been about nutrition, and we've hit on exercise.
Mm-hmm. We've had how many bodybuilders and or personal trainers have we had as guests? Probably more than any other type of guest.
Right. Well, that's somewhat related to our interest, but it
is
related to what we do for a living. So in terms of the other things that are probably equally important, sleep is one of them. And for some reason, at least in the recent times, we have lowered the importance of sleep and kept and elevated exercise and nutrition. And then mindfulness too. Those are 4 things in your life that are really, really important to your overall health. And mindfulness is more like stress reduction, et cetera, et cetera. So, and sleep, and including in my life, just gets thrown out, it's like the redheaded stepchild. Well, but why is that? Why is it culturally that we have nowadays struggled so much in the Western world, in the first, in those areas where we're populated, there's urban areas?
I think people have that theory, even if they don't actively have it at the forefront of their mind, that I'll sleep when I'm dead, that you're somehow missing out if you're sleeping. When what you're really doing when you're sleeping is you're actually banking on a better health, a better future. And I think that's the disconnect, is that people don't see the benefit of sleep for their future health or even for their immediate health, because they're getting by, I'm getting by, this is fine, I'm managing, I've got this, But the problem is, these conditions, all of these things, when they become bad, you're limiting your health for the future.
Yeah,
is really what you're doing.
And then when you find out that sleep affects so much of your physiology, from the macro, like your brain, to the micro, like your genes, and everything in between, you start to realize that sleep should be prioritized, just like eating and exercise and drinking water.
Yeah.
It's that important to your life.
It really is.
Literally, it is what your life is dependent on. So, do I sound like I'm getting on my soapbox
You
here?
do, but before we get any further, there is a very special, this next slide is extremely special to me.
Wait. What are you pregnant?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No. What would that have to do with sleep?
I don't know. You kind of freaked me out there.
I'm preparing to not sleep for the next 5 years of my life.
Does she have a COVID baby?
No, I'm not having a COVID baby. So you don't know what the next slide is. If you could guess one thing that I would get really geeky about in relation to sleep, what do you think that would be?
I mean, there's a lot of things. Is it, just give me a hint. Is it nutritional?
No,
or,
it's not nutritional. It's physiologic.
HRV.
Nope. No.
Oh, darn it.
It's bigger than that.
Okay, go ahead.
So the magic of the glymphatic system.
Glymphatic system, of course.
Like the microglia.
That was on the tip. That was on the tip of my tongue.
Oh my gosh! Like, I get to talk about the glymphatic system.
Oh gosh!
Like I feel like I've.
I have long discussions with my son about the glymphatic system. I'm like, son, I know you're 13, but at some point you'll understand the glymphatic system.
Right? Like, let's talk about microglia. So the glymphatic system is fascinating, and it's something that really has only been widely understood since about 2012. So it's not something that we've historically had a really good understanding of, but we do now. And it's a fascinating thing. So basically, your glymphatic system works in conjunction with your CSF, your cerebral spinal fluid, in and around your brain. So
your brain is bathed in this fluid called cerebral spinal fluid. I think people know that. You have a dura, which is like the outside of the balloon, and it allows that fluid to stay around your brain. And that fluid is actually very nutritious to your brain. It helps it with a lot of things, which you're going to get to right now.
Right. So it kind of brings stuff in, it brings stuff out. You know, like it's very well regulated.
It's like the hokey pokey.
Right. And we've known about that for hundreds of years. Like the cerebral spinal fluid and the movement of the cerebral spinal fluid throughout your spinal column and around your brain has been well understood for a very long time. What is more recently understood, though, is the function of these little astrocytes. So these cells that function within, even deeper within the brain, essentially. And what they do is they basically are washing. So this glymphatic system is like your brain wash. And it functions around the arteries and veins in the brain. So the arteries, if you look on YouTube, we've got this great slide that kind of shows this green area around the artery is what's bringing things in. And then there's little tubulars also around the vein that are helping bring things out. So things like amyloid plaques and waste products that build up. Your glymphatic system is key in helping these get out. And that's another thing that I think has really changed in the last 20 years about our understanding of how the brain functions. We used to think it was such a closed system and that it was impenetrable. And,
we've talked about this before. Yeah. The blood-brain barrier is huge in medicine when I was in training, that nothing got through. And we're finding out that everything gets through. And not everything, but a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
We've talked about the Parkinson's connection from the vagus nerve. And they feel like that Parkinson's may be contracted from the gut.
From gut bacteria. Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Yeah. And finding out that you have a glymphatic system that, as you said, washes or cleanses the brain daily. Especially, I'm assuming you'll get to this, especially when you sleep, right?
Yeah, it functions primarily when you sleep. I mean, that's when your brain essentially gets to wash itself and to spend time like cleaning things up. And we'll talk a lot more about sleep cycles. So this glymphatic system is really, really integral in helping your brain clear like amyloid plaques, which are a huge indicator of Alzheimer's or early onset dementia. If your glymphatic system is not able to function appropriately, you're going to get a buildup. Of just stuff in general. So to me, I mean, if you're at all interested in kind of deep diving into a really cool system in the body, look up the glymphatic system, look up the astrocytes,
we should do like microglia. We should do a Zoom conference with nerds like us.
Oh my goodness.
I know Nils will be there.
The functions of microglia and all these teeny tiny little cells inside the brain are so fascinating.
Even looking at amyloid plaques or these proteins that develop in things like Alzheimer's and why those abnormal proteins are there, why we can't get rid of them. Do they actually cause the disease, or are they just like indicative of the disease, but the actual pathophysiology is different?
Yeah.
So interesting. I mean, there's so much information and studies coming out now about this stuff too, which it's like a great time to actually be knowledgeable. So if you can, get your Glymph on.
Right.
Go on YouTube. Do glymphatic system. There has to be some lecture on YouTube about this.
There are several. There's also some great books that talk about the functions of microglia and the glymphatic system. I mean, like really, really fascinating books. It's definitely a deep dive. I mean, there's not really an entry level discussion about this aside from the one I'm having right now. Yeah. Like
on the glymphatic system.
Actually, there probably is. There's some great Coursera's on neurologic function, like some really deep ones.
Of course, you would know that.
Yeah, but it's really cool. So a lot of sleep and a lot of issues with our entire body, obviously we have a pretty good idea that those things start in our brain, right? Our brain's kind of the control center, but understanding more about how the glymphatic system works to clear out some of these other issues and how it functions primarily when we're sleeping is a good key or, kind of tidbit along the path of understanding this.
If you think about the liver does that for the body and the bloodstream, you can understand. Well, you may not understand, but I remember at medical school, the most important organ the anatomy teacher said was the liver, or the biochemistry teacher. But in reality, this is just as important, or maybe more important, because your primary functioning comes from your brain. Mm-hmm. So you get that, and sleep is really important to allow this system to work.
Yes. So I'm a big fan. The magic of the glymphatic system. Next slide. Here we get into this is where all your notes come into play.
Oh my gosh.
How to improve your sleep.
I mean, should I go through my 12 pages of notes here?
Let's start. Let's a brief overview that some of the main things that.
So let's go first, and you lead the way in terms of the stages of sleep. I think that's important. So sleep, in general, has known stages, and we're giving a basic level talk on sleep here. So if you want,
we are not sleep experts.
We're not sleep experts.
We're just really
amazing.
Passionate about sleep.
Matthew Walker, you could go.
He has a great book called.
Amazing book. Yeah.
His book is called Why We Sleep, and it's really awesome.
Amazing. He's super smart, from California, British descent, and he is one of the leading experts on sleep, and some of his information is really good. He has a great TED Talk. He was on The Drive with Peter Attia, which is it's like multiple episodes. It's a lot of information. He was also on Dave Asbury's podcast.
Which was he was probably a year ago. I think that was probably back in
February
that
was really
of 19.
good. Dave Asbury I like as an interviewer better than Peter Attia, but they're both great.
He's a little more accessible.
Yeah. So there's 4 cycles, or 4 stages. There's awake, there's light sleep, there's deep sleep non-REM, and then there's REM sleep.
Well, actually, light sleep is called light non-REM.
Oh, okay.
Like it still is
light
called
non-REM.
light non-REM.
All right. Mm-hmm. So awake is what I have spent historically a lot of time in. Light sleep is another one of my faves, which I hate.
Which should be 40 to 50% of your total sleep time.
I call it junk sleep, but Amy's convinced me that it's actually really important. And by the way, light sleep is when you imprint all your memories, so it is important. Deep sleep, non-REM, is extremely important, and then REM sleep. Now, these stages of sleep, they found, like Matthew Walker has found, that these stages of sleep should comprise a certain percentage of your duration of sleep.
Well, this is just sleep in general. Like the normal mammalian sleep cycle is 40 to 50% light sleep.
Right.
And then 20 to 25% deep and REM sleep.
Right. Yeah, and usually the deep's a little bit longer. In most cases, 25 to 30, and the REM is 20 to 25. Mm-hmm. So now you get into this whole discussion. It gets down in the weeds about quality and quantity. They have found that definitely there's a duration that you want to actually be asleep for, and it's definitely over 7 hours, I believe.
7.9 is the ideal for most of the population, but there are variations in that for sure.
And there's like a very rare subset of mutants. They call them mutants. That actually only need 6.25 hours of sleep, but whatever the case is, most people need, like, just imagine in your mind 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, which is kind of like mandatory, which is like very concerning to people that don't really sleep that much.
Well, for optimal health and optimal functioning, and that's, again, where I go back to our bodies are pretty good at getting by, but it doesn't mean it's optimally healthy. Also, sleeping too much is found to be not good. And there again, it's the chicken and the egg. Like, are you sleeping 10 hours a day because you are ill?
Right. And that's what he said. That's what that Matthew Walker said, that when you look at those
skews
the studies for people that sleep over 8.5 hours.
Over 9.
Or 9, they have a higher mortality, he said, because a lot of those people are actually sick.
Yep.
They actually have disease processes going on. So it makes sense their mortality is higher. Like, if cancer and heart disease and stuff.
Yeah, so they artificially skew that. But it is still concerning. If you're sleeping more than 9 hours and you're an adult, children need more sleep. Teenagers actually need the most sleep after infants. If you're an adult who's sleeping, 10 hours at night, you might want to, just talk to your doctor about your sleep and see if it's normal for you, which it could be.
I feel like that's my wife.
She can sleep 10 hours at night.
She's like gets in bed about 8 and then wakes up at 8. She's like, it was a great sleep. I'm like, you're such an asshole. Like,
wow.
Why? I can't do that.
Has she always been like that?
I mean, at the most, I can sleep at 8 hours.
Well, no, but your wife, has she always been able to sleep like that?
Yeah. I mean,
like throughout life?
I'm sure the COVID isolation crisis didn't help all these people. They're like basically low-level depressed because you're isolated. You don't have social interaction. So what do you do? Sleep. That's what a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah. But depression can work against that as well. Like, it can
100%.
make people sleep less.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have these stages of sleep. We know the duration, at least 7.5 hours. Let's say 8 hours for argument's sake, and that's really can keep you healthy. If you go below 7 hours, they've shown impairment in a lot of ways, even after one night, and they've also shown that below 7 hours, you can have impairment or changes in your body and your physiology that are irreversible. So the 100 million years that I spent in training on every other night call and totally sleep deprived, I've screwed my body for the rest of my life. So that's frustrating to me personally. But the good news is, and we'll get to all this stuff, is that there is hope for the future, meaning that even if the damage has been done previously, just like other things in our life, we talked about this today, like smoking, if you were a smoker and stopped smoking, if you had a drinking problem and you drank a lot, or if you were overweight and you lost weight, obviously there's impairments and things that are done to your body that are long-term, but you can change the future. And that's the idea of this episode. And that's what I've done with Amy's help. So how to improve your sleep. So if you're someone who struggles with sleep, do you struggle with sleep?
Yes and no. I either sleep extremely well or not at all. So I would not say I struggle with sleep. However,
that's not surprising. You're black and white with like, just everything.
Pretty much. Like I either fall asleep the second I get into bed.
You're, what is it? Binomial, binodal, it's like it's either yes or no.
Yeah. But when I don't sleep at all.
Yeah. And has that gotten better or worse over your life?
The only time I struggle with sleep is when I'm very stressed.
Okay.
Like when I'm very, very stressed is the only time I don't sleep. So that I would not say has gotten better or worse over my life. It's cyclical.
So they've shown, like with age, right, that people sleep worse.
They have less deep sleep and less REM sleep, yes.
And the main part of sleep comes from the prefrontal cortex, like the front of your brain. And unfortunately with age, that atrophies, and that's a problem. So that those sleep-wake cycles management are disrupted a little bit when you lose some of the meat of the brain, the forebrain, the front of the brain.
Right. The same, and there's so many of these things. Like you really wonder what starts this process. Like then you have concentration issues, short-term memory issues. Like all those things happen as your brain begins to atrophy as well. Also, you have less sleep. You have more of all these health problems that we talked about before, inflammation, cardiac issues. You brought up actually the studies on heart attacks after daylight savings time.
Oh, do you know this, Nils? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so spring forward, heart attacks or cardiac events go up 25% the next day, fall back, so you get an extra hour, they go down 25%. And that's the same is true for car wrecks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like full studies of the population. So that's powerful numbers.
Well, it's like the car accident thing. I mean, that's across the country, the amount of accidents that happen right after. Yeah, from 1 hour. 1 hour of a disruption in your sleep cycle. And I brought up that slide from the NTA conference that showed how insidious continual lack of sleep is. Because remember that graph? So it was basically they had the people who they kept up. They ended up keeping them for like 3 straight days, and they were doing all those tests on them. And they spiked really fast. Like, so right away they started doing really bad on everything after one night of sleep. But all the others who were getting just like an hour to 2 hours less, eventually after 2 weeks, they all met that same level. And these were medical students. Yeah. Like, so you can't.
Of course, it's unethical to do this to normal people, but the medical students, we can sleep deprive.
Right. I'm sure they were paying them. No, but it just shows that like, 1 night of sleep, yes, it's bad, but like the bigger issue comes when you start to just get used to your lack of sleep and start thinking it's okay. And that's where working on improving your sleep can be a multifaceted approach of like many things.
Yeah, and they show, so not sleeping obviously affects the front of your brain. Not sleeping also affects the hippocampus, which is at the base of your brain. And that's like your inbox, your Gmail inbox. And so when that becomes dysfunctional, then you don't really do well with imprinting memory or information. So you can see that's why people, when they're not, they haven't slept, they're really tired, they have a difficulty with this normal task. I mean, decreased creativity, decreased productivity, decreased problem solving. They've shown like in the military and then like obviously.
Well, that was that test that one I just talked about. That was all problem solving skills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like even in like work situations, performance goes way down. So it's pretty disastrous across the board. I mean, that doesn't even get into the fact that once you lose the frontal cortex and then you get into the areas of the deep brain that are all emotional, then you can act irrational. They show that people that are sleep deprived have like worsening behaviors. They become, they have more unethical behaviors. They lie more. I mean, it's like when you talk about this, there's nothing good about it.
No, well, because what you're doing when you're depriving your body of sleep is you're really depriving your brain of the chance for it to clean itself, for the glymphatic system to work its magic.
Right.
And that's why the glymphatic system is so magical.
All right. So sorry to go off on that.
Yeah.
So if, a lot of people listening to this, and we're here to help, and this is what this is about. It's an educational podcast, but it's about your life, your body, your self-perception. So if you struggle with sleep, this should be a priority in your life to solve that problem. And it's not easy coming from someone who's struggled with it. I'm relating here to the public, but there are things that you can do to make a big difference in your life right now with sleep.
Well, improving your sleep is investing in your future.
Investing in your future.
It's investing in your tomorrow, and it's also investing in your long-term health.
Imagine sleep deprivation. Imagine you're smoking cigarettes every day. That's the comparison. Do you want to stop smoking? It's the same idea. Do you want to sleep better? It's for your health. There's only positive stuff can come out of this.
Yeah. So the first thing, and this is a really important thing, is to try and stay in sync with your natural sleep-wake cycle. There's actually a whole group of people, it's very small, that are called advanced sleepers. This is a real term. You can look this up to see if you're an advanced sleeper.
I'm not.
I am, actually. So
I'm advanced in a lot of things, but not sleeping.
Surprisingly enough, I actually am. So an advanced sleeper is...
You are an advanced sleeper?
I am. Someone who naturally, and this is like, you're on a desert island, like advanced is not, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. Advanced really just means the timing. So meaning I am in advance of other people's sleep cycles. Don't think of it as like a grading thing. Like advanced means just like you're ahead of the actual timing. So advanced sleepers are people who naturally will go to bed early between like 8 and 9 o'clock and wake up naturally between 4 and 5 a.m.
Oh, that's me. I can go to bed at 9 and wake up at 4:30 and feel perfectly fine.
Right. So like if you were on a desert island, this is the thing. Like when would you naturally go to sleep?
Around 9 o'clock.
I would. Yeah. I'm when the sun goes down. Like so I am not a night owl.
I'm advanced.
And you wake up,
I just want you to tell me I'm advanced.
Like I said, advanced is not maybe a good thing.
Okay.
Like that's not necessarily a good thing, but it is important as much as you can. I mean, granted, we live in a society where we have to have jobs and function, but to try and honor your natural sleep cycle, a lot of people will, even when I work with nutrition clients, I always talk about sleep. And, if you're laying in bed every night, if you're trying to go to bed at 8 o'clock every night and you lay in bed until 10, maybe you need to just not try to go to bed at 8 o'clock.
You're right.
Like something, maybe your body is just, this is not your natural sleep cycle. So first kind of take a look at that. Now, if you have to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and so you're trying to force yourself to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night, and that's just the way your life is right now, okay, that's fine. We'll move on to some of this other stuff. Let's try and make your sleep environment better. But there are definite people that just naturally are more night owls and more morning people, and that is basically imprinted at birth. Like, you really can't change that.
And once you figure out what you are, however you do that, it's better to be regular. That's one of the things that these sleep experts say, that having a regular bed routine and timing of the bed routine is really important.
Yep,
right?
And that's down at the bottom here.
Okay.
Wind down routine is definitely part of it. Yes. So getting the right light exposure is another thing that starts the second you wake up in the morning. So first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is you grab your phone or your electronic device.
Just run outside and just stare at the sun.
No, it's basically the amount of blue light that comes from your devices is about the sun you'd be getting in the middle of the day.
Got it.
Which is not the right sun for you to get in the morning. It's very, very good to get 20 to 30 minutes of natural light exposure in the morning, because the light in the morning is obviously a bit diffused. It's coming up slowly. It's a little bit diffused light. So it wakes that cycle up slowly. Same thing at night. The study that you and I both talked about was the one where this was one that is in the book, Why We Sleep, talked about the iPad study, where they have people read for 1 hour before bed on an iPad or on a book. And the book, there was low light. And the effects of the sleep disruption from that 1 hour of iPad reading were almost like a drug in your system. Like it had a half-life that continued to affect your sleep cycles for days afterward.
And you stayed somnolent, which means you're tired during the day. Yep. It's kind of a bad situation. The blue light inhibits the release of melatonin from the pineal gland, or how do you say it?
Yep.
Pineal gland? Yeah, yep. Pineal gland. And that melatonin release, it's on a rhythm. And once that blue light hits you at nighttime, it really messes up melatonin release, and they think that's the primary mechanism, and that's where you get the disruption. That's why it's so important. That's like the first thing you told me to do. Amy told me, take your phone and put it away from your bed. Mm-hmm. And she goes, actually, get it out of your room. And I have a hard time doing that because I'm a doctor and I have patients and I don't know.
Right, but you can still move it farther away. It doesn't need to be right by your head.
That's what I did. So I moved it like literally 15 feet from my bed. I plugged it in and, put the volume up enough to where I could hear the ringer go off if, if someone was having a problem. But it made a big difference.
Yeah. And one other thing that's not on here, well, it kind of is improve your environment, but while we're talking about phones and electronic devices, is not just the effect that the light has, but also the effect that the radio frequency has. So the effect of your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Highly, highly recommend if you are absolutely trying to optimize your sleep to not have your cell phone in your room, but to also turn off your wireless router at night. They've actually, the cool thing about sleep and with the brain is that these actually are studies that are done because you can actually see this activity of the brain. They can do sleep studies. They have your brain, like they put you in an MRI machine, they're scanning your brain and shooting these high frequency waves at it, like 4G and now 5G, which is really terrifying. It stops the synapses in the brain from firing. So like it actually stops it. If you're really serious about improving your brain.
Are you going to wear like aluminum foil over your head? What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, this is the good thing about living. I mean, it's there.
No, I know, you're right.
It is there. These things have an effect on our body. So
exactly.
If you're really up there with your sleep and you really want to take this to the next level, definitely look into 5G and Wi-Fi.
So the Wi-Fi system I have is called Amplify. Shout out to Amplify, not a sponsor, but that's okay. All you have to do is just go on your phone. It's connected. You could just click it off and on. You could set it on a cycle, so meaning that it could shut off at 10 o'clock and start back up at 6. There's a lot of systems out there. It's not expensive.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't need Wi-Fi at night. Your phone will still ring if your Wi-Fi is turned off.
You could talk to my 13 and 15-year-old about that.
They especially should
they
not
may
be on their
disagree
phones
with you.
at night. You can still text.
How can you play all your video games stuck in the house?
Well, after 10 o'clock at night, you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Especially as a teenager. You need sleep more than anyone. But
so that is a big thing, actually, is the light exposure. One of the things I've done, these are just anecdotal for us, is I had Amy help me order a red light for the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So like when you're older, not when you're younger, you wake up.
Or when you're a little kid.
When you wake up and go to the bathroom. Yeah, so you tend to turn the light on, obviously, so you can see where you're going. And that light, when you turn on, is most likely an LED light, even if it's the K level of it. Even if it's more toward the yellow, it has blue in there, and
it's
that's
really
not
disruptive.
That's not good.
Yep.
So what we got was basically a night light that has a red light. It almost feels like you're in a submarine, and you understand now why submarines have red lights on them. It's actually easier to your eyes. Mm-hmm. It's not as, I don't know, it just feels softer. It feels more clear, and that's what I put it in our bathroom.
Yeah.
And it was very funny because I put it in there and I didn't tell anybody in the family. The next morning I had the red nightlight sitting on my bedside table. I said, "Why'd you guys take it out?" And they're like, "It was weird, Dad. You had a red light in there." I'm like, "Put that damn thing back in there. Don't turn on the light in the middle of the night."
It was weird. You'll get used to it. Well, I think from camping, I mean, all headlamps always have, or the good headlamps have a red setting.
Yeah.
Because same thing, like you don't want to disrupt wildlife with your bright, headlamp in the middle of the night. So red lights are actually a great option, and having dimmers, even just dimming the lights in your house.
Dave Asprey has red lights on the entire outside. I'm sure his house is huge. He's like very wealthy. So like on the outside of his house, and he goes, his neighbors are like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "This is for like the
wildlife,
stars and the wildlife and everything."
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Light pollution's big.
Yep.
Yeah.
Red light's really good. One last thing on light exposure. Actually, if you can do this, really blackout shades are huge. And that, especially for me, it's not as important because I'm like Amy, I'm an advanced sleeper. So I wake up early.
That's why I need blackout shades, because I'm an advanced sleeper, and in the summer, it's still daylight out when I'm going to bed.
I know. I've been struggling with that. So actually, there's a total sleep pillow that it's like a weighted pillow for your face, and that it kind of falls over your face. So supposedly that'll keep like a eye mask.
Yeah, an eye mask. Yeah. I used to use an eye mask, but
I hate eye mask.
Actually, I didn't mind them, but
I don't like it.
I like the blackout curtain
because they always kind of roll off. The blackout curtains are really important too for light. You have on here exercise.
Yeah, so exercise at the appropriate time is really, really powerful.
So what is the appropriate time?
For most people, it's going to be before 6 p.m. or at least 2 hours before you're going to go to bed. The problem with getting really intense, and some people are just fine, and this is where your own staying in sync with your own cycles really comes into play. Some people can have a really hard workout at night and sleep just fine. Other people can't. Getting exercise first thing in the morning tends to just kind of in general kind of wake our bodies up. But, there are people, and there are studies to prove that you're actually your strongest between 4 and 6 p.m.
Right in the afternoon after work.
Yeah. So like that's going to be your strongest time.
That's where you can really get your pump on.
Yeah. So whatever time you like to work out is totally fine. But exercise in general is just, it's very healthy for our bodies and how they like to function. Like our bodies kind of need that release of endorphins. It helps with melatonin regulation. It helps with cortisol production.
And then adenosine, that's something I read a while back. And adenosine goes up, and that kind of contributes to feeling tired.
Yeah, the ATP.
Yep.
Yeah, so exercise is good, but you do want to be cautious of doing it too close to bed. So like going out for a really intense run and then coming home and thinking you're going to go to sleep a half hour later is maybe not so realistic. Might be.
So associate with that, the reason why you don't want to do it too close to bed, and maybe we'll get to this, but I don't see it on your list, is temperature.
Yeah, and that's going to be an improve your environment.
We'll go on to that next time. Because exercise does increase your core body temperature.
It does, and your core body temperature needs to drop by 2 degrees before you get into deep sleep.
Yeah, 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, so there's that part of it too. If you're, overly excited, you might not fall asleep. If you're too hot, you're going to have trouble falling asleep. And I mean, like...
Overly excited in the bed.
I mean, like your nervous system.
Honey, I can do this, but I just don't want to raise my core body temperature.
I got to calm down. Right? So see, that's the opposite though. So you'd be nice and relaxed after.
So your core body temperature drops 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets the lowest around 4 a.m., right? So that's kind of really drops down, and then it starts to go back up. And we Amy and I can track this stuff with the stuff we use. And lowering that core body temperature is really important to falling asleep quickly and staying asleep.
Yep.
And so if you sleep in a hot room, all bets are off. That's a terrible thing to do. And it's, a lot of people have loved ones that really like hot or warm, and that's just terrible for sleep.
It's not good for sleeping. I mean, that might be fine for them during the rest of the day, but it's going to be hard to stay asleep in a really hot environment. Yeah. So that goes into improve your environment, which is pretty big thing. Most people use their bed for a lot of things that are not sleeping and sex. And that's one of the key things that you can improve.
That's sleep hygiene, sleep, and sex. That's it, right? Yep. Not even reading, right?
Yeah. And I mean, if you're really struggling with sleep, you should not read. And that because people get into a habit of like reading for hours. So if you can responsibly read in bed, like if you know that you can read for 10 minutes and you'll fall asleep, great. But if you're reading in bed because you can't sleep, get up and go read on the couch.
So my problem is always waking up too soon. It's not falling asleep. I read a page and I'm out.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally have the same book for like 6 months.
Because you're reading one page at a time. Yeah. And so
it's embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, so you're not sitting in bed reading. Like you don't get up in the morning, read the paper in bed and, drink your coffee in bed. Like you're not using it as a place to like read. And that's, if you are up and not sleepy and you're able to sit there and read a book, maybe you should be reading that book on the couch.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. We talked about blackout shades. Turning off your Wi-Fi is huge. Even very tiny amounts of light can be very disruptive because our eyelids, as we all know, like when you close your eyes, it's not like you no longer sense light. Like you absolutely do. Like if you are in a dark room, your eyes are shut, you keep your eyes shut, somebody turns a light on, So these little bits of light, so even things like the light on your phone, like the notification light, if you have your phone near you, turn it upside down so that notification light isn't kind of triggering your pineal gland, actually has rods and cones in it like your eyes. So that triggers deep parts of your brain that there's light.
So there's something that I think we're going to talk about, some device that I use, and the LED screen on it has blue on it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
a piece of planer's tape or electrician's tape.
That's what Dave Asprey does. Yep. He takes like griff tape? What's the stuff? Gaff tape. Yeah. He'll take it to hotels and start taping over anything with light. The guy's insane.
Well, a lot of people, people that travel who have like altered sleep schedules, like pilots and flight attendants, will like bring duct tape and tape down the shades in their hotel rooms. Because light, even little bits of light and if you have like a GFI outlet in your room that has a light on it, like put a piece of electrician's tape over it. Like getting rid of as much light as you possibly can in your sleep environment will make a huge improvement.
Huge. That's one of the biggest things. Temperature and light are probably the two biggest things.
Yep.
And then one thing we didn't talk about with light is the blue blocking glasses.
Yep, blue blocking glasses at night. They really do help.
And I got those for my kids because you can't get them off the screen. So at the very least, you can hopefully salvage the melatonin release.
Yeah, they say that nowadays, and this is a new statistic, that people in general spend 42% of their waking time on a screen, which I actually think is that's taking into account people who do very little. I mean, this is a broad population.
Even that's an average. That means some people are like 60, 70.
Or higher.
Jeez.
And I mean, really think about it. Like on days when you're not in surgery, how much of your day are you spending looking at a screen? And me too. Like, I mean, on days when we're not in surgery, oh my gosh, sometimes I won't step away from my desk.
Oh, I mean, Amy, you know me. I'm meditating.
Right.
I'm forest bathing.
You are out forest bathing. But that number sounds shocking until you actually look at your life.
I'm not searching for my next favorite show on Netflix.
Right. Or on your phone mindlessly for hours. I think that number to me actually seemed kind of low. I'm like, man, I'm surprised
Still a lot.
It's not higher.
I mean, half your waking hour.
Right. And like, what are you doing? Like half your waking hours are this,
I know.
Yeah.
So the next thing you write in here is time your food intake,
Yes.
so this seems like a roundabout story, but Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan. And it's just so interesting to hear Elon Musk. I mean, Joe Rogan's fine, but like Elon Musk himself, when he talks, he's just so interesting and weird. Okay. And he just happens to throw in there. He goes, it's a very Asperger-y voice that he has. He's like, people, you shouldn't eat close to your bedtime because when you lay down, you get reflux. And that can be very irritating. A lot of people don't know that. So I try to really time my eating. But it was just so odd with him talking about it. But
then just FYI, laying down does not cause reflux.
Well, I thought it was funny.
Your pyloric sphincter is very strong.
Laying supine with a full stomach if you have problems with your sphincter, it can be a problem.
If you have
it's not everyone. It's fine. Don't hate on Elon Musk. He's not a doctor.
I'm saying this to people in general. Don't think that laying down is going to cause you to have reflux.
But he's doing this whole neural link.
That's not how gravity works.
He's doing a whole neural link thing where they're putting basically deep brain stimulators, but more involved, and they're taking out a part of the cranium, the bone, and they're putting in this battery pack with this circuit in it, and they're connecting to the brain and augmenting the brain, especially for people with like seizure disorders and stuff like that.
Well, they've done that for Parkinson's, the deep brain stimulators.
My dad has a deep brain stimulator. Yeah. So it was really interesting. He goes, it's really not. So Joe Rogan asked him, he goes, well, that's invasive. That's crazy. It's, this weird hybrid of man and machine. And Elon Musk.
What do you think a pacemaker is?
Well, he's like, what do you think a phone is?
Exactly.
He goes, the phone calculates everything way faster than we ever could.
Yep.
And so basically we're already connected. And if people are on the screen for 60% of the day, then that means they are solely dependent on this device, on this technology. And how did we get on this topic? Oh, yeah. So using these devices, albeit have improved our lives in some ways, have a huge amount of negatives besides the psychosocial part that's occurring now, but really in relationship to sleep. And I think that's the main problem. My sleep improved when I took that phone and moved it away from my bed. Mm-hmm. And when I wake up in the middle of the night, I used to grab the phone and sit there and I'm like, oh, I can't sleep. And now it's not there. I'm too lazy to go up and start grabbing it and look at it. You kind of roll over, you roll back and forth for 20, 30 minutes and you're back asleep.
Right.
Again. Yeah.
Instead of spending 2 hours doing nothing on your phone in the middle of the night. Yeah. And not only you're not sleeping during that time, but you're disrupting your sleep for days to come when you do that. Like it's true. So timing your food intake though is an important thing, not because you're going to get reflux if you lay down, but because if your body is busy digesting food when you're trying to sleep, your temperature elevates slightly after a big meal.
That's a big thing. So your core body temperature goes up.
Yeah.
Because your metabolism goes up.
Food is thermogenic. Yeah. So the thermic effect of food is basically like as your body breaks down this food, like it uses heat, it produces heat. So if you've eaten a big meal right before bed, your body temperature is going to be elevated for a longer period of time, which means you may not get as much deep sleep. So even if you're like, oh, you have a food hangover, right? Or you got whatever, you were so tired, you ate so much, you fall right to sleep, your quality of sleep is not going to be as good.
Which is, and we didn't really talk about alcohol, but it's terrible for sleep. And that's
not entirely true.
Oh, we did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good, I didn't know that.
And actually Matthew Walker, your guy Matthew Walker talks about this. Like,
is he my guy now?
Well, you brought him up. So there is a sweet spot with alcohol consumption. Yeah. And basically, we don't fully understand why, but people who have no alcohol consumption and people who have way too much alcohol consumption do not sleep as well as people who have a moderate intake of alcohol.
I have to say, if I have a glass of wine, I don't drink that much, neither do you, but if I have a glass of wine with my wife around 6, just one glass, this is anecdotal. I feel like I sleep better. In most cases, you could go back and track my sleeping and see that I probably did sleep better.
Yeah. So there is a correlation there. Obviously, if you're binge drinking or drinking a lot,
Right.
it's going to really disrupt your sleep cycles because of the way your body processes alcohol. Like, it's just making your body work really hard for an extended period of time, breaking down all that alcohol. Your liver and your kidneys are going to be struggling to do that. So it's a very active process. It's metabolically active for a long period of time.
Yeah, anyone who's had too much to drink, and I mean, historically, when I was like in college and stuff, you'd wake up about 3 a.m. and you're like burning up.
Yeah.
Your body is like in overdrive. Your liver is like, what the hell just happened? It's not good for sleep.
Yeah.
Alcohol is really not. I mean, not in
Conversely,
moderation.
though, there are times, especially with my nutrition clients, I'll recommend them consuming something before bed. Specifically, people who have trouble
Like an
staying
aperitif?
asleep.
Like an aperitif?
No, like I did it for you, the no coffee latte.
Oh, yeah.
Like some MCT oil, some honey.
Yeah.
Like there are times when having a very small amount of fast-acting carbohydrates, so like honey, and
Some fats.
and some fat is going to help your brain kind of shut down. It gives your brain some food, so it can, it gives your body the ability to kind of fall asleep and stay asleep.
And I was wondering if this compressed eating kind of phenomenon or what everyone's doing now is affecting sleep.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the way I look at it, like intermittent fasting, but I also prioritize working out in the morning. So to me, I would prioritize my calories in the morning and less
too.
in the evening. And that's kind of the opposite of what people do with intermittent fasting. They don't eat until like, noon or 6 p.m. and then try and eat one giant meal before bed. And if that makes you feel good, great, but if you're having trouble sleeping, looking at when you're intaking your food and what food you're intaking late in the day might really play a role. Yeah. And all of these things are, if you're trying to improve your sleep, if you love intermittent fasting, you like eating 5,000 calories at 10 o'clock at night and you fall to sleep and you sleep all night like a baby, then great. Like, okay.
It just seems distorted. I don't know. But maybe I should do it and see what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, if you have other reasons for wanting to.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the wind down routine.
Just like running through the house, like, I need more calories. Come on.
Right,
I only got 5 minutes left.
I've only got 10 minutes left in my feeding window. Yeah, that's not normal. So you mentioned it before, the wind down routine, and that, works for babies and it works for adults. Like if you have a rhythm and a cyclical
I should have my
thing
wife
that you do-
swaddle me like that we do with babies.
Yes.
I mean, that's what my weighted blanket is.
It is. That's what a weighted blanket is a swaddle. It's an adult swaddle. Yeah, so those things.
So the truth is coming out. I'm still a baby.
Right. You're going to be sleeping under your hood with your weighted blanket swaddling
Yeah,
you
my
in a
total
dark
sleep,
room.
like weighted
Yes.
pillow.
Yeah, but those things, it makes a big difference because it trains your body to expect certain things. Like we really are cyclical in nature. Like our bodies run on kind of an internal clock as it is. So cueing yourself that this is my wind down routine, like I take a bath or I read my book on the couch, I turn the lights down, like all those things are going to help improve your quality of sleep. It's going to help improve how you fall asleep, and it's also going to, by the same route, make sure that you stay asleep better. So all those things are good. Her mask kind of is tripping me out. We're going to go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the big slide here.
Sleep hacks.
Advanced sleep hacks. So what are some things, like you've done all the things, but you really just care about your sleep enough that you want to do absolutely everything you can to make sure you get the most optimal sleep on the planet?
This is where I am now. This is where I am.
Yes. So
Partly because my life is boring and I eat healthy and I try to do the right things and go to bed at the same time.
I don't know, that makes your life boring.
Yeah, okay.
So a couple of things on this slide are the chili pad, which we've talked about before in podcasts, our Aura ring, which we'll talk about a lot, and also supplements. So which one of these things you want to start with, Dr. Martin?
Let's do the chili pad.
Okay.
I love my chili pad.
So aren't you glad I sent you that? Like you need a chili pad.
I love it. And by the way, I think they still have their post-COVID discount right now. So you should go in there, chili pad. I don't know what it is, chilipad.com or whatever it is. So it's basically, we've talked about this before. You put water into this small compression machine and it pushes water out and circulates into a mattress cover.
Yeah, like a mattress pad.
Yeah.
So it sits, you lay on top of it and it circulates a certain temperature. You can set the temperature. So depending on the time of year, you may need to adjust it by a few degrees.
So it's slowly gone lower as the temperature's gone up.
Yeah.
So I was at 65, which is actually, by the way, the recommended temperature in the room for sleeping, 65 degrees. And that includes your bed. and it's gone down. Now it's at 62, and it's probably going to go below 60 over time.
As it gets hot.
Yeah,
well,
as it gets hotter.
I mean, Denver gets pretty hot. So it keeps your core at a solid state temperature. Now, an interesting thing, we talked about like your body temperature needing to drop for you to sleep, but they've actually done some really cool studies on people, and these are on humans, which is the cool thing about sleep is you can actually study some of the stuff on real people, and it's moderately ethical. If you warm up people's hands and feet,
Oh, yeah.
superheat their hands and feet.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you warm up the hands and feet. Okay, not cool them. You warm them up. And what it does, it draws out the blood and lowers your core temperature, but your hands and feet are hot.
Yep.
Which I think is so interesting. So
Yeah. So they're actually...
we should make like socks and gloves for people to sell it.
warm up booties. Well,
Yeah.
they make mattress pads that have a heating element just in the feet, so that you can like superheat your feet. And if you've ever, been like camping or something, or you're just have really cold feet, like it's hard to fall asleep when your feet are really cold.
That's true.
Like when your feet are like ice blocks and you don't have someone to warm them on.
I know.
It's really hard to fall asleep. So
I just tuck them under Barb's legs.
see, but if you don't have that, or it shocks the person next to you and they jump.
I should get your dog over there.
Right, that's when you need a dog. Yeah, if you have none of those things, so it might be helpful. Like if if you don't have a chili pad, but you're trying to drop your core temperature a little quicker, like get your hands and feet nice and warm before you get into bed, and you drop your core temperature faster, and maybe get some deeper sleep.
Yeah, I love the chili pad.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's not hard to set up. It looks a little clunky. If you had friends come over, they're like, "What is this strange like mechanical device emanating from your bed?"
Slide it under your bed. Yeah, the tube. Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing to see here. But it has a low hum to it, which I actually really like a white noise.
It's the pump.
Some people may not like that. I personally, it's been so comforting. It's not invasive. As I said, the LED screen on it, this was what I was alluding to, is
put a piece of
blue,
tape over
which
that.
I don't understand. I mean,
Well, it's because it's meant to be
you
under
should
your
write
bed, but you should be able to turn the light on the screen off.
write chili pad and tell them they need to change it to red.
Well, just turn it up, make it so that it's motion activated or
It has
something.
a remote control that comes with it, which is really easy to use, and you can lower it and raise it. So chili pad, highly recommend.
And you can get dual zone also, so you can get single zone for
You can get queen, king, single beds. I got just one for a full size bed, which we have a king size bed, so it only covers half the king size bed, and it works perfectly.
Yeah, but you can have different temperatured sleepers if you want, or you can just have it on one side of the bed. So it's really, really awesome. They are pricey. I mean, they run without specials around $500
Oh, really?
and up.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're pretty expensive.
Maybe wait till next year.
And they do take a little bit of maintenance.
Sleep's not that important.
They take a little bit of maintenance. Like you have to clean it. I mean, obviously there's water running through this.
And you have to use purified water, it's distilled water.
Yep.
Thank you. And it was funny because when COVID hit, I went to Whole Foods to get distilled water, and the guy was like, "We don't have any distilled water." I'm like, "Look, I'm not getting it for survival.
Well,
I'm getting it for my chili pad." And he's looking at me like,
you should not drink distilled water. Just FYI, distilled water is not something you should, as a human, should drink.
Okay,
It's
well,
deplete your
apparently
body of
people have
minerals.
stored it up for
I think they just
the
don't
end
look.
of days.
Like it depletes your body of minerals. Like you're gonna be unhealthy in a hurry if you're drinking distilled water. So do not drink distilled water.
Okay, Amy tip number 25,000.
Amy tip: don't drink distilled water. So chili pad's awesome. Next thing is the Aura Ring. Maybe let's talk about Aura Ring last, because we got the most to talk about this. Let's talk about supplements. So supplements for sleep.
All right, so there's one that you gave me that sometimes I take, which was really good for workouts because it's high in zinc. What was it?
ZMA.
ZMA, thank you.
Yep. ZMA is a great supplement that does help with sleep. It is especially good for athletes. So it's a zinc, magnesium, and B vitamin blend. And the reason that's good for athletes is because it's going to help with things like cramping, like muscle cramps.
Yeah, and that's not expensive. You can get that online.
ZMA is really inexpensive, and it really does help with sleep. Like ZMA is a great place to start if you have got all your other stuff in check. ZMA is non-habit forming. It's not, you can start and stop it. It's not going to have any impact because it's basically just vitamin mineral blend, but it is really helpful for sleep. A lot of people go to melatonin for sleep, which does work, but you have to time your melatonin intake very precisely. People will take it and then they're like, well, I don't fall asleep. It's like, well, yeah, you took it at 10 o'clock at night when it was already too late and you'd been exposed to blue light for the last 8 hours. So if you do decide to take melatonin, I highly recommend like either working with somebody or just doing a little bit of research. You really need to be taking it before you are going to fall asleep, where your melatonin would naturally peak. So several hours, sometimes even 2 hours before bedtime, is really where you want to time your melatonin intake to get the benefit out of it. Melatonin can make you feel drowsy, especially if you're taking it at 10 o'clock at night and then you don't fall asleep till midnight. Like it can make you drowsy if you're taking it when you really shouldn't be taking it.
That's why I stopped taking it. I mean, your melatonin secretion goes down with age, but I was struggling with it. But maybe I was just not timing it correctly.
There are a lot of biohackers that recommend melatonin for its anti-aging benefits. Yeah. So, if you time it correctly, it can be a really good supplement, and it is in theory non-habit forming. It's a natural substance. It can be helpful with sleep if you time it correctly. CBD is another one that can be very helpful for people in sleeping. It's a natural substance. Again, timing is kind of key with it. Like when you take it is kind of, are you stressed? Is that why you're not sleeping? Like you kind of want to time it and mess with your dosage a little bit, but it's definitely something that's natural that can really help with sleep and again is non-habit forming. I think the important thing to think about with supplements is people go to the drug class, right? So like Ambien or some of the drugs for sleep. There's a big difference between sleeping and being sedated. So if you're taking one of these over-the-counter sleeping medications or even something like Benadryl, it has a very sedative effect, but it's not really helping you get any better quality of sleep.
Yeah, the quality of your stages of sleep are not.
It's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah. So they've done crazy studies with people with different types of anesthesia and how that affects your sleep cycles. And
I think if you're someone like that, maybe actually, look at the CBD part because the cannabinoid system, specifically certain types of CBD supplements, you have to get the right one, are really good for anxiety and to kind of calm your brain a little bit.
Yeah, like if the reason you're not sleeping is because you're stressed or you have an overactive mind, CBD
which is usually what people take the
to.
pills for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who have that type of sleeping issue, I would always go to something natural first because the prescription and over-the-counter sleeping medications are not really, they're not helping you sleep. They're kind of putting you to sleep, which is different and extremely habit forming, really not good for women. The studies that have come out about Ambien for women are pretty scary. So if you're a woman specifically, I get it. At some point, you really need sleep, and they will help you sleep.
At some point, we'll have to tell on one of these episodes my experience of taking Ativan going to Europe.
Yeah.
It had like the opposite effect on me.
It's like people that take Valium get hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I highly advise anything that's like affects your neural system is to try to stay away from that with sleep from a chronic standpoint.
Yeah.
If you have to over
like no judgment. If you need it to sleep.
1 or 2 days, you had surgery, you had an injury,
you
had
you
a
were
severe
taking care of someone who had an injury,
a death in your family or something.
But you need it to sleep.
It can't be something you use chronically.
Yeah, not for chronic use. So something else that I didn't mention when you were talking about the pineal gland, obviously with melatonin. So taking melatonin is one of the things that really helps nourish your pineal gland. But things that are going to hurt your pineal gland, in addition to not getting enough sleep, are things like taking the wrong form of calcium. What can happen? You can get kind of this calcium buildup in your pineal gland.
I'm not even joking. I was reading around the pineal gland because I remembered it from medical school, like recently, like in the last couple of days. And it talked about it being the third eye, like that's the first thing. But the second thing, it talked about wrong calcium supplements.
Yep.
Like literally, she's like Google.
And fluoride. Well, I mean,
where does this come from?
Nutritional therapist. I should know my stuff, right? But also fluoride is really damaging.
Yeah, it talked about that too.
Yeah.
Which is why people don't like putting fluoride in the water because it's going to mess with your pineal gland and
there's filters. Like I drink filtered water, but if you're really looking to optimize things from a natural standpoint, doing things to support your pineal gland, like decreasing your intake of fluorinated water, potentially even getting rid of fluorinated toothpaste and fluoride treatments at the dentist, like those things will really help your pineal gland be healthy. So also boron, foods that are high in boron, like dried plums, raisins, avocado, all really high in boron.
I'm going to tell you, like, first and foremost, when I go to the grocery store, I avoid boron.
You probably avoid borax. There are people who recommend drinking borax, but yeah. So those are supplements. So now we get into the thing that we love talking about.
Oh, we love this. We love it.
Yep. So do you have yours on today?
Yeah, I have mine on.
Too. I got mine.
If you watch YouTube, we're holding it up. Mm-hmm. Our Oura rings.
So we didn't do that in silence like we did the last time where we just did this.
Yeah.
What up? In silence. Yeah.
The ring's awesome. It's really cool. It has like a metal outside, and you can spin whatever you want. These things can be kind of pricey if you get the really nice metal. And then on the inside, it's more of a plastic structure, but it has like sensors, obviously.
Yeah, the little bumps, almost like if you have a ring sizer,
Yeah.
like if you're trying to make a ring smaller. So like my ring size in the Aura ring is actually like 2 sizes bigger than my regular ring size. And I think that is because it's a little bit thick. And if you look in it, it has like a little QR code on the inside, and it has these 3 little bumps that stick up like a ring sizer would.
Yeah, even though I got mine big, this is just word for the wise. It's hard for me to get it off my finger.
Yeah, mine too. Like
So you
definitely,
need to get a
definitely use the sizer.
Use the sizer and get it a little bit bigger than you think you need.
And I'm glad I did that. I like mine occasionally, because you are wearing it, basically 24 hours a day, and your hands will sometimes swell, at given points in the day. You definitely want to get it bigger than you think. Like if I had gone with my ring size and ordered that, I would have been able to maybe fit it on my pinky. Like it would have been tight. So definitely get the ring sizer from them before you get it. And they do make a few styles, and they're always working to improve them. Like the style that Dr. Martin and I have is the newer style that came out probably a year and a half ago or a year ago. The one before that was huge. It looked like it was this big oval. It was really hideous looking. So when they redesigned them, that was when I was like, okay.
This one looks like a wedding band almost.
Yeah, almost like a really thick one, like a really thick, chunky one.
You have to charge it. Charge lasts like a long time, like 3 to 4 days.
Oh, mine lasts longer than that, but I keep mine on airplane mode.
Right. You can, Amy puts hers on airplane mode
Which
during
you
the
should
night.
do because you are sleeping with this device by your head.
I know. I think
But
about
if
it
you've
every
turned the
night.
Wi-Fi off in your house, then you're good.
So why don't we talk about what it senses? Like what kind of information does the Oura Ring
So it's really meant for sleep. I mean, that really is the primary function behind an Oura Ring. Is it's really meant to help you optimize your sleep and understand your sleep patterns.
I think the competitor would be Whoop Strap, right?
Whoop is pretty new, and Whoop is still more for working out more. I mean, that's really not.
But they do sleep stuff also.
They do some sleep stuff, but they're more for working out is more their thing. I mean, your Oura will definitely, you can add your activities and add other things to it, but it's really not meant to track your activity as much as it is to track your sleep. So if you're watching on YouTube, I actually pulled up my Oura dashboard. So primarily we look at it on our phones. Should we say what our sleep score was last night?
Oh, yeah. So this is the best. For someone who's competitive, you can compete with yourself. So these devices that sense your sleep are not like 100% accurate, but they're pretty consistent. So it's really important to look at the trends, not just every night, but you can kind of start to see trends for your sleep, and you can associate those trends with how you feel.
So go to your main page. What does your readiness say?
Okay.
Go to your homepage.
Okay, my readiness is 92, which is like ninja level readiness.
What does it say?
92.
Ready to race. Looks like your body recovered well last night. Your heart rate lowered during the first half of your sleep. Do you
I'm like
feel
a Navy
refreshed?
SEAL. I'm like Navy SEAL Team 6.
Okay, so that's what yours says. Mine is not so good.
You suck. Is that what it said?
Mine is a 76 and it says pace yourself. Your resting heart rate lowered last night, so you may not lowered late last night, so you may not be fully recovered from yesterday's activities. To help your muscles repair and regain your strength, try not to push yourself too hard today. So today, instead of going for a run this morning before I work, I went for a walk.
Good.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can. It looks at your readiness and your HRV, which we
look
can.
at your sleep cycle.
Yeah.
What was your sleep score?
My sleep is even better. So my sleep score was 87. Yours was
77.
Yeah.
And my heart rate was elevated last night. Like 52 is high for me.
So it just to be real clear, it senses a lot of things. Your stages of sleep, which is really important.
This is not sponsored. We should probably say that. We are not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored.
We just love them.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah. That's fine.
They should sponsor us, though. It would be awesome.
It's okay. That's all right. It wouldn't make it so pure. I just have like an undying love for this ring. Okay. I wake up in the morning. I look at my score. Obviously, I have a pathology in my brain, which makes me a good surgeon, and it makes me want to look at score of sleeping. But it's okay. It's something that I can use to help myself. And I think actually Dave Asprey is on the board of this.
I think I feel like he gets on the board of all the companies that are really cool.
Yeah. All right. So it'll break down your stages of sleep. We talked at the beginning that you want to know what those stages are and the duration. And it also tells you, it's really good about knowing when you're awake and asleep. It's maybe not as good as breaking down perfectly how much REM sleep you got, but definitely tells you your wake sleep cycles and when you're awake. So what was your total sleep time?
Oh, that was yesterday. My yesterday was really good.
What was your total sleep time?
My total sleep time last night was, I think, around 6 hours. Let's see. It was 6 hours and 16 minutes.
I was 7 hours and 30 minutes.
What was your total time in bed?
Total time in bed was 8 hours and 15 minutes.
Mine was 6:48. So my sleep efficiency was actually pretty good. It was 92%.
Right. How much REM sleep did you get?
Oh, this is where it gets bad. 48 minutes, which was 13%.
Yeah, mine was still a little bit low, which was an hour and 15 minutes, 17% of my total sleep. Remember, we talked should be between 20 and 25, and that's normal for me. I usually hit that for REM. What was your deep sleep?
My deep sleep was 27%, or an hour and 43 minutes.
27%, 2 hours.
See, but you got way more of it than I got because I just
okay.
didn't sleep much.
So REM sleep, we talked about, is really good for your emotions and to keep you stable. Deep sleep is really good for metabolism, glucose sensitivity, or insulin sensitivity, getting that glucose in your muscles. And that light sleep, non-REM, is really good for memories.
Right. Well, and during light sleep is actually when your brain kind of is really active and really awake, essentially. So like it's really functional. So like it's really, light sleep is very important. If you deprive someone of any one of these stages of sleep, their health suffers.
I think these things are really good because it shows you trends. You can, if you have a bad night's sleep, you can relate it to maybe a behavior you had. Maybe you're looking at the TV too long. Maybe you ate too late. Maybe you got in a fight with a loved one,
right,
et cetera,
you're
et cetera.
stressed, yeah.
You can really see that, and that's really important. And then you can start to mitigate those insults to your sleep. The second thing is, as Dave Asprey said, I keep talking about him, sorry, but he said something that was really important I agree with, is that it allows you to really optimize your sleep. If you can only sleep 7.5 hours, I can't sleep more than 8 hours, no matter how hard I try. But if I get a lot of REM sleep and a lot of deep sleep and a lot of light sleep during that time, well, I mean, those are the 3 stages. But
right, if you actually sleep during that time.
During that time, and really good quality sleep, and that's really important.
And that's the difference between and that's why I like the time in bed and the sleep efficiency. So like even though I got very little sleep last night, my sleep efficiency was actually good. So it wasn't like I was in bed for 10 hours and only slept for 6.
Right.
I was in bed for 6.5 hours and I slept for 6. Like it was pretty close. And the really cool thing, like you said, is being able to see trends. And one of the things that for me, like I definitely see a trend in is my resting heart rate. When my resting heart rate is high, my sleep is not very good. And one of the things that makes my resting heart rate the lowest is when I'm sleeping with my partner. Like my resting heart rate is much lower.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, like so much lower.
And my resting heart rate is lower on good night sleeps and higher on bad night sleep. Yep. And then this ring also does your temperature, and you can actually see your, like on the days, on the night, the sleeps that I tend to not sleep well, my temperature tends to pop up. And there's some reason, either I'm fighting an infection, I ate too late, whatever.
Stress. Yeah, ate too late is a big one. Yep.
So,
or just not sleeping well.
So interesting.
Yeah. And it is really cool. Like if for women who are listening to this, it tracks your, it doesn't give you the exact temperature that it took because it's taking your temperature throughout the day. So what it's showing you is averages, but it's really cool. Like I absolutely know when I can expect a spike in my temperature around ovulation. And then as you reach different stages in your cycle, it's extremely predictive. So like I know exactly what my temperature is. You mean
for pregnancy? For getting pregnant? Is that what you're saying? No. Are you pregnant?
No. All kinds of conspiracy theories now. No, I'm not pregnant.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I support it, but I
right.
just
no, for your menstrual cycle.
We work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I start like wearing like really baggy scrubs and waddling a little around the office.
I'm just gonna like hack into your like temperature chart.
She's definitely pregnant. She hasn't had a temperature spike in over a month.
I do think it's very funny that I've had this ring for 6 months now, and I didn't even realize
almost a year.
You could go on the website, which you've been doing this whole time.
Yeah,
which shows you like better graphs than I could ever get on my phone.
The graphs are cool, and you can see some of these. You can look at the trends function on the app, and the app is really awesome on Android and Apple. Like it's really, really good. But looking on the online, you can definitely get a lot deeper into it, which is really cool. It's really...
That's our non-sponsored infomercial for
I know.
Oura Ring.
But it helps you see that any of these other things you've done are actually making your sleep better.
I love this because, number one, you put it in airplane mode so you don't have to get hit with all the waves.
No
airplane
EMFs.
modes means it monitors, and then once you connect it to your phone in the morning, it downloads everything.
You actually have to connect it to the charger. Once
Yep.
you're in airplane mode, you have to connect it to the charger to get it out of airplane mode.
Right.
But that's awesome. Like, so if you're, for people who don't want to add this as one more thing to like be worried about, or if you're the type of person who's going to perseverate and be stressed, put it in airplane mode, check it once a week and see like, okay, I got the chili pad. Am I actually sleeping better? I feel like I am, but am I? I finally got my husband or wife to start wearing their CPAP machine at night so they're not snoring all night long. Am I actually sleeping better? So it helps you see that the things you're doing might actually be working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. You said it better than I would have. It gives you real data to judge how you're doing. The problem I've had with sleep all along is everyone, including Matthew Walker, says you just have to sleep more than 7 hours. You have to have good quality sleep, but they never really tell you how. They give you some tips, but nothing really definitive. And I like tips, but I would also like to be able to measure the results of those tips.
Right.
And this is the first thing I've had that I feel like I can have the judgment on it. It's not perfect. You're not in a sleep lab where you're hooked up to electrodes all on your scalp and stuff, but this is pretty darn good.
It is, yeah. Or like the Russian studies when they were trying to figure out how to make it so astronauts didn't need to sleep as much.
Yeah.
So they would shoot the deep brain waves through their heads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
I think Matt Walker talked about that on his in his TED Talk, that they're actually trying to make devices that do that.
Right.
That follow the rhythm and the light sleep of those brain waves that imprints the memories, that they amplify them. So they do the same kind of rhythm as the brain waves.
Yeah.
And that it just overall makes your sleep better.
Right. Like forcing you into certain cycles of sleep. It's kind of fascinating. I think, like I said, one of the things that really fascinates me about sleep is that we do these studies on humans where a lot of things that we talk about in medicine are maybe not able to be done on humans, or in nutrition. Like we can't really do ethical, long-term, double-blinded studies on nutrition. It just wouldn't happen. They'd take hundreds of years, and because of the epigenetic changes of a person, would still be completely fallible.
And no one would believe it anyways.
That's what I mean.
Religion, nutrition is like religion, and no one believes anything anymore. So it's okay.
Being able to have like real data and like real things you can track is pretty cool. I mean, and it really, our sleep is such an important thing. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, being able to make it better, I think, is really, really cool. There's my weekly. Yeah, look at those.
Pretty damn good.
Look at those things go. Monthly.
All right, so what else we got?
That's it. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody listening in today. I know this was a little bit of our longer podcast. I think we were just so excited to be back to not
besides Nils looking like a serial killer, I feel like this is we're back at it.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I'm getting my hair cut this Friday or next Friday? Next Friday. Yeah. So the next podcast, I will actually look groomed and presentable. I apologize to everyone watching on YouTube right now.
You did a good job today. You coiffed it well.
I did, okay.
Yeah, if you
just put a lot of product in there.
If you like this podcast, please give us a comment, a rating, a review. It really does help other people find our podcast. We can be found on YouTube at Jason Martin MD, and also on Instagram at Beauty and the Surgeon Podcast. We do love questions. A few episodes ago, we did do some viewer questions, so please keep them coming.
We really love viewer questions.
Yeah.
It's like those are, to me, the most fun episodes.
They are fun.
Yeah, because you feel like you're kind of reaching out there, hanging out with everyone at a campfire, just talking stuff.
That's right. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.